Hello, back again with another episode of Real Health Talk with Dr. Coring. My name is Dr. Coring, a board certified internal medicine physician who is also in training to be a hematologist and an oncologist. And it is my pleasure as well as my passion to educate common folks such as yourself on practical health topics. And the health topic that I would like to educate people on today and discuss today is processed and red meats and the association with cancer with these meats. And so the question of the day is, are the meats that you're eating potentially causing you or putting you at risk for cancer? And to answer that question, we could address some research that was basically done by the International Agency for Research on Cancer, the IARC Working Group. And in 2015, they did a study looking at the consumption of red meat and processed meat and its association with cancer. And according to their research, it was found that eating processed meat and or red meats was associated with three main cancers, primarily colorectal cancer. Also, it was known or shown that eating processed and red meats is also associated with pancreatic and prostate cancers. These three cancers are known to affect people of poor socioeconomic status as well as people of color disproportionately, meaning out of proportion to essentially people who are well to do and also people who represent the majority of people in this country, which are Caucasian Americans. And so there's a disproportionate amount of patients who basically are diagnosed with colorectal, prostate, as well as pancreatic cancer. And so the question is, could this be related to ingesting processed meat and or red meat? And according to this study, the answer is maybe. And let's dig. And what I would like to do is talk more about maybe the reason why, and then also the recommendation on how much of this meat that we should probably intake on a weekly basis. And so let's talk about why. Why does processed meat and or red meats maybe a risk or put you at a risk for developing cancer? And so the thing is, we should probably define what is processed meat so we could be clear about what are we talking about. And also we should define what is red meat. So processed meat refers to meat that has been transformed. What does that mean? Well, seemingly when we salt meats or when we cure meats and or when we ferment meat, also when we smoke meats, we're essentially transforming this meat to improve its preservation. And so what it's saying is we're making this meat transformative, or we're turning this meat into something that could be easily preserved, meaning we could put now this meat on the shelf, meaning we don't have to refrigerate this meat because once we transform it with salting, curing, and fermenting, and even smoking, we're now allowing this meat to be basically shelved at room temperature for a long period of time. And it's called preservation. And when we do this, it tends to transform the meat also by making it a carcinogen, which means that transforming this meat to preserve it also can make essentially put you at risk for developing cancer once you ingest this meat. And also, we also transform this meat through the processes that I mentioned for flavor to improve the flavor of the meat. Okay, and so most processed meats contain red meat. And so let's talk about red meat. Red meat is any meat that can be deemed as beef, veal, pork, lamb, horse, or goat meat. including minced or even frozen meat. All of this meat is considered red meat. And this meat is usually cooked, all right? And this meat normally has a high amount of B vitamins. So that's good for you, as well as iron and zinc. And so the problem with red meat is we typically like to process it. And so we like to do things to the meat to preserve it. So we like to salt it, cure it, ferment it, smoke it. We like to do these things to the meat to make it taste good. And also, we like to cook these meats at high temperatures. And so the problem with red meat is not necessarily the meat itself, which we could talk about that because, there is some problem with the meat itself. But the main problem with red meat is one, how we cook it, cooking it at high temperatures, and how we prepare it, meaning the preservation process. That's what caused it to be cancerous. So let's talk about the processing, the curing, and the smoking and the preserving it. So when we cure the red meat or smoke it to make it more to make it taste better and or to preserve it, it tends to turn carcinogen, meaning there's a chemical that's released during this processing called N-nitrosyl compounds, NOC, and also polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAH. These two chemical compounds is what's deemed through research to be carcinogenic, meaning it can cause cancer. Specifically, put you at risk for colorectal cancer, prostate cancer, and pancreatic cancer. And that's with the preparation process or processing it. Now, we also like to cook these meats, these red meats, at high temperatures. And basically cooking it at high temperatures. We like to do this. Obviously, it makes it taste better, and also it's easy for us to digest it. So naturally, we want to cook these red meats. And specifically cooking by pan frying, grilling, and barbecuing. That's the high temperatures that releases carcinogenic chemicals. What are these chemicals? The main chemical that are released when cooking these meats at high temperature is a chemical called heterocyclic aromatic amines, HAA. This chemical essentially is carcinogenic, meaning it puts us at risk of the cancers that I mentioned: colorectal, pancreatic, and as well as prostate. And so, in summary, red meats can cause cancer, specifically if it's processed, meaning that if we're curing it, smoking it, fermenting it, basically preparing it to be preserved, puts you at risk of cancer. Also, if the red meat is cooked at a high temperature, meaning if it's grilled, pan fried, smoked, also releases a carcinogenic chemical, which also put you at risk of cancer. Okay, so what's the recommendation? How can we mitigate or prevent this risk? Well, I'm glad you asked, because the American Institute for Cancer Research is suggesting that we essentially avoid processed meats at all costs. So what does that mean? Avoid meats that are prepared by curing, that are prepared by smoking, that are fermented, that are salted. Avoid those meats. All right. Now, if we do eat red meats, which I mentioned, red meats has its value. Red meats has high B vitamins. It has high minerals like zinc. Red meat also has high iron, especially if you're anemic. It's okay. We should consider eating these meats, but not cooking them at high temperatures to release these carcinogenic chemicals. Maybe put the red meat in the oven instead of barbecuing it. And also, we should limit our intake of these meats. Instead of eating it every day, the American Institute for Cancer Research is suggesting that we eat the red meats maybe 3 portions per week. So what is a portion? 12 to 18 ounces. So if we have to eat the beef steak, if we have to eat the pork, if we have to eat the lamb chops, the American Institute for Cancer Research is suggesting that we eat these meat products only maybe 3 times per week, 3 portions per week, 12 to 18 ounces at the maximum, okay, to prevent the cancers that are affecting people of color, people of poor socioeconomic status the most: colon cancer, pancreatic cancer, and prostate cancer. All right. So just to summarize, guys, processed meats and red meats, especially when cooked at high temperatures, can cause 3 main cancers that we deal with pretty much consistently, especially people of color: colon cancer, rectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, and prostate cancer. And the reason why is when we cook these meats and when we ferment these meats and process these meats, they release cancerous chemicals. And so the best way to prevent us from getting cancer is that we should avoid eating processed meats altogether and also limit our intake on eating red meats. All right? That's my time, guys. That's my time. I hope you guys got something from this lesson. You know, cancer is a major problem in our society, especially in Western society, especially people of color, specifically colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer. Let's try to prevent from getting these cancers, limit our intake on red meats. Not eating processed meats will also help. Love you guys. Until next time, peace.